And this is what I mean. We give so much attention to why. What is this? We are literally giving so much power to emotions that just want to move through us.
Mhm.
Emotions are energy in motion. If we keep attaching to it, we stay in that state of emotion. If we just let it move through us, okay, cool. I'll find out if it's that person later. Or if it's something from my past that's unworked out, I'm sure I know it because it's a pattern, right? But so this is the thing is like, we're always like, what does that mean, right? The wisdom is not in the emotion. The wisdom is in what you do with it.
Hello and welcome to the Soul Awakening podcast. I'm your host, Kat Fowler, and I'm super excited to bring this week's episode to you. And it's all about, well, there's several topics, but we primarily do speak about inner child healing, owning our personal power, self-love, what it's like to be a highly sensitive person and an empath, how to deal with that, how to work with our gifts, modulate our gifts, and the typical relationship dynamics that can occur as an empath or highly sensitive person with narcissists, and why that happens, how we can heal from that, how we can get out of that, how we can move forward, and how to be self reflective and really what to look for with ourselves. So, this episode was really insightful and powerful, and I will introduce and read to you Candace's bio so you have a little idea of her work and who she is. Candace van Dell is a renowned thought leader, spiritual coach, and expert in navigating toxic relationships and inner child healing. With a deep understanding of emotional well being, Candace empowers individuals to reclaim their authenticity and cultivate healthier connections in their lives. Drawing from her extensive training in psychology and spiritual practices over the last 20 years, she has developed a unique approach that combines mindfulness, somatic healing, and emotional intelligence. With her razor sharp intuition, Candace guides her clients through quick, transformative journeys to the core of the issue, helping them heal past wounds and break free from unhealthy patterns to unlock higher potential in all areas of life. As a sought after speaker and workshop facilitator, she shares her insights on the missing piece in inner child work and the impact of toxic relationships on mental and physical health. Her engaging style and compassionate nature creates a safe space for individuals to explore their feelings and find clarity. Candace's mission is to inspire others to embrace their true selves, fostering purpose driven lives. Through her work, she encourages individuals to connect with their honest emotions, facilitating deep healing and empowerment that lasts a lifetime. Candace's unique method of healing is taught in her membership, library of online courses, as well as her YouTube channel, podcast, and her one on one mentorship. And so this episode really encompassed a lot of that. We did cover a lot of topics. In the beginning, we kind of were just speaking more personally, and then we really got into the nitty-gritty of the wounding and how to heal all of that and the how-tos. So hope you enjoy this episode and hope you get a lot of aha moments and wisdom from it. And I will see you at the end of the show. Enjoy. All right. Hi, and welcome to the show, Candace. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I'm really excited to talk to you because you are one of those people who I feel is like a mentor guide to so many people with your work. And you primarily reach people through YouTube, but through other social media as well. And you offer many things and a lot of advice on many topics. But personally, I found you maybe almost 10 years ago. I know.
I
On
bet
YouTube.
so.
Yeah, yeah. I found you on YouTube and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is exactly right. And that's when like you had your videos that would have like the cute Apple effects with like the stars and
I'm
like
dying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the funny ones. And you would always repeat that saying like you've got to feel it to heal
Get,
it. Or,
get real about how you feel so you can heal.
yes, yes. You had a
That's
lot of rhymes.
definitely
And I was
me. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I love this so much because it's true. And that's when I was really starting to go through I always taught yoga and stuff. We think we're awake and then you go through different layers of your
Oh
awakening.
my gosh, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah, like just layers and layers. So you were one of the first people I found when I was starting to really get into the psychological, deep emotional aspects of my healing. And I studied psychology in college, but I felt like, you can study it, but then when you're actually going through an awakening, that's when you really need that. And also, they don't really address the spiritual aspects of an awakening. Um, so I
Mhm.
found you all that time ago, and then we have randomly stayed in touch because I feel you're one of the very authentic creators out there
Yeah.
that as you're going through something, you share it. And for me, and I felt like, I don't know if you remember, but it was around 2022 when I went through this like massive breakup, disheveling of my life, everything, whatever. But I think you did too. And so, like, you were posting about that. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I feel like we're having very similar experiences. And, your ability to share what you were going through and process it kind of in a very raw way was what really drew me to your work again. And then I started watching your stuff. And so that's why I really wanted to have you on because I feel like your work can help so many people, especially when it comes to relationship dynamics, inner child work, and working with highly sensitive people, which is the majority of the audience and listeners here. So I'm really excited for that. So before we get started with like the questions on kind of the how to and how to help ourselves and whatnot, how did you actually get into this work and how was your awakening for you? What was that like?
Yeah. So, it's so funny. I've tried to shy away from anything woo-woo for so long. And then, yeah. But I can't fully do that when I'm describing what happened. So recently I'm like, you know what, Candace, it's not woo-woo. It might be weird to people who aren't fully aligned with that yet, but if you are in any way, you're going to feel what I'm saying and resonate on some level. And so when I was a kid, I always knew something was different. I was having like visions. I didn't know it was weird or different at the time, but I would have visions and I would see spirits. I know it sounds strange. And I would have imaginary friends. And I remember really early on, like loving life and being so full of love and life, but like not understanding why certain things were not true. There
Mm,
was no truth anywhere. Like I could see it in my family dynamic. It would feel weird. And then I would act it out and then I'd get in trouble for acting out, like just
mhm,
trying to get some clarity, transparency. And then in school, the system didn't work for me. At age 7, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and my mom was a teacher. So that was like, I didn't fit in, that whole thing.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
But I would do things my own way and get the answers right, but I would just do it differently. So I knew there's just something different with the way that I was processing and seeing things. And then on my 16th birthday, I was away at a youth group convention with 2,000 other kids praying to God, doing the whole thing. And that night, I had an out of body experience and I had no idea what it was. It was so like exciting and beautiful and felt so perfect. But I was like, is everyone doing this? And I remember looking around the room and everybody's face was my face. And I had this like download of like, we're all the same. There is
mhm,
no difference. It was just such this freedom and just this excitement of identity that came over me. Like, there's nothing wrong with you in God's eyes. Maybe it's society. And that was the first time that dropped in. And right after that, I had all these synchronicities. I started my modeling career internationally. I just all these amazing things started happening, and I was like, I'm tuned into something.
mhm,
And that's when I started discovering indigo children and being like, oh gosh, maybe I was just born this way. That's a little bit more spiritual and emotionally processes differently. And now, obviously, I use it as my gift. But
mhm,
um, funny enough, I always wanted to be a spiritual psychologist because I was in therapy as a child with my family. They divorced and stuff. And I remember asking my therapist, I was probably like less than 11 years old. And I don't know how the hell I knew this, but I said to her, is there like a spiritual therapist that I can talk to? Because you're not like, I remember her saying, you're not going deep enough. Like, I'm talking about something deeper. And she said to me, wow, like you're really intelligent. She gave me some little snippets to make me feel like I wasn't weird or like
Right,
in the
right,
wrong
right,
planet. And
right.
so I knew, but then when I was going to college, I kept looking for something that would mirror what I know I was here to do in the world. I couldn't find it. And so the easiest thing I found that was the most similar was studying pre-naturopathic medicine. And so that's what I started going to college for. And right away I was like, this is not, I need like a deep psychological, spiritual thing. So I went off and did my modeling and acting career for ever. I think it was 20 years I did that career,
Wow.
um, but it was about 10 years until I finally was like, it was my Saturn returns, and I was like, I am being called into this work. Like 30 years old, I'm like, I'm
Mhm,
called to this. I don't know what to do. I'm going to find it. So I start dating this man that became my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend and he lived blocks away from a school that has a master's degree in spiritual psychology. And I was like, this is my time.
Isn't that funny?
So the timing was perfect. I wanted to go, 20 years earlier, but the timing was perfect. And not 20 years, 10 years. And I went and did that program for 2 years. And it was almost like people were being called to me because my practice started before I even graduated.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
then I did like one YouTube video with one of my friends, and I had like 100 emails from Australia. Like it was crazy. So I was like, okay, I'm stepping into the role that I was here to do. And I knew it and it felt it. And I knew that I had stepped into my purpose. So my awakening happened a lot earlier than my purpose sort of
Mhm.
became its thing. But um, yeah, I mean, I've just always felt like this is my place in the world. And finally, the world has a place for me.
Totally. What was that like when you had that first experience? Like, did you talk to anyone about it? Were you just like, oh my gosh, like how did you process that if you didn't have anyone kind of there guiding you around that hasn't been through that themselves?
Honestly, it was probably my existential crisis time because it
Mm.
started out amazing. Like I knew my identity. I knew my identity in source, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I chose that over the identity I was feeling in society with the label and just like there was no difficulties for me other than the ones they told me I would have or had. I didn't.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when I went back to school and I saw that the world did not function the way I was understanding it to be, I had like a crisis. I was like, why am I being rejected? What's jealousy? Like, why would the universe do this to me? I started diving into every book because nobody could help me. There was no one there. And I was like, why
Right.
would I have this level of understanding at this young age with no support and no guidance? And
Hmm.
so I realize now I had to become that. I had to learn through it all and like have my own methods to do this now in life. So that's cool. But for a lot of years, I was angry at God because I was like, why would you give me this gift and then not give me tools to be able to keep it in this crazy 3D reality? I couldn't understand it. So it was definitely an existential crisis. But at the same time, I kept following my dreams and I kept saying, I know I'm in touch with something. I'm going to keep trying to get it back. I'm going to keep trying to like anchor in this thing. And what it ended up being very clear to me early on was being your authentic self is the way you stay connected. And I have many examples of what happened to me back then, but it was like, just be real. That's why I came up with that tagline.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
real, just be authentic to you. Just eat what your body wants you to eat. Just be what feels good to you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with what you think. There's nothing wrong with what you feel. And when you do that, you get back in alignment with that synchronicity and alignment. And that's what I really tried to master over those, how many years? 15 years.
I think that takes a lot of courage because especially for a lot of us listening, like myself included, we were the weird kids. We were the ones that had gifts open or
Yeah.
just were in touch with a different path. And like bullying is a huge part of our past because of that throughout many different parts of school. So for you to kind of go through that and then still have the strong belief of like, okay, but I have to be authentic. I think especially as a teenager, that's really challenging. Um,
Well, I'll tell you the example because it was something I could not deny. And
yeah.
I think it's a great little story because when I tell people, they're like, oh, like I don't know. I've always been able to just read the universe in a way.
Yeah.
And I think my bullying, I was never bullied in school, but I feel like I was more bullied at home. Like you're weird, you're different. It was that for me. So school wasn't any kind of joyride for me because my grades weren't great until I got straight A's in college because I finally got to just study when I was studying.
Right.
But
Right.
more on that later. But I was more bullied at home. And hate to say it, but it's true. And for me, what happened is I got my first modeling contract. I was going to Tokyo, Japan 1 week out of high school. So right before college, I went to Tokyo and I was really nervous that I would be rejected because I was trying to understand this world. And I knew
Mm.
I was born for this. I fit it. Okay, cool. But before I went, I was like, okay, I should do what models do. And I should probably try to diet, even though I was like the skinniest thing. I should try to diet. And if I look at their measurements and their height, okay, I should be this. I lost almost 20 pounds before I went. I got there and they took away my contract and sent me home because they're like, you look anorexic. We wanted you the way that you were naturally. And
Ooh.
so I took that as, instead of a failure, I took that as they want me as me. I'm going to come back next year. And I did. And I got the contract back. And then I went back 5 more years. So I didn't let that kind of failure or misinterpretation um, ruin anything. I would always try to perfect it or get it back or
Mhm, mhm,
right. So,
mhm.
but being me. So then but it took me years to feel authentically again because of all the misinterpretations of society of like it's
Mhm.
scary to own yourself. Someone will take it away, someone will prove it wrong. All of that took me years to figure out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to ask you a little bit more about the modeling piece and the rejection piece because so I lived in Manhattan for some time and I got like scouted and then assigned with Wilhelmina. I'm 5'5", so I was a fitness model. And so I did yoga primarily for 12 years. And so then, we do print ads for yoga and magazines and things like that. So I was like their yoga person. But I had never been in a world like that until like I didn't look for it. It found me and then I was just in it. And castings are crazy. Castings are crazy. Like, and you go to so many a day and it's
Yeah.
just basically you're constantly being met with competition,
Oh yeah.
rejection, and like every person has a different or every company has a different thing that they want, and
Yeah.
even if you're great at who you are or what you do or whatever,
Yeah.
if you're not what they want, you're just boom next,
Yeah.
and so it was like intense. So how was that for you, also being a spiritual person as you did this for a living for a very long time?
Yeah, I did modeling 22 years
Hmm.
and I worked like a lot the whole time. However, even though you're successful and you work a lot, there's still competition, rejection. I can tell you horror stories where I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Where I got canceled off a job because I was bloated. I'm size 2. Okay. So like this was happening.
Wow.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
looking back, it wasn't actually difficult for me because I always anchored my identity in that spiritual world, which was the best thing I could have ever done. However, it did affect me in, in ways because you're like, oh, that's a bummer. It never really like took me out. I think my life before that took me out. So
Hmm.
for me,
Hmm.
and also I always had like a solid partner at the time when I was in it, even from the time I was like 22.
Hmm.
So my life wasn't just 100% that, but the ups and downs were difficult. Like, am I going to work? Am I not going to work? But I do remember, like looking back, seeing the career that I do now, I always say that the modeling industry taught me to not give a shit about rejection because it's society standards and measures. God didn't do that. It's society saying you have to be 5'9", size 2, blonde hair. Like this was the thing. And I'm like, great, I am that. And screw yourself. Because I just remember looking at my agents and being like, God, they're so delusional. I always would think that, like, God, they care so much about the bag that I would just laugh at it. Cause I was like, this is like, they're so stuck on that as their whole thing. And I saw through it, but even though I was in it, I wasn't of the industry. I was just in it. And I
Hmm.
think, whenever I wouldn't get a job, I'd be like, whatever, there'll be another because I did work so much and I did have the top representation. So I knew like, okay, they see something in me. It's just the client, or maybe I just, didn't work out enough this week, whatever. And now I kind of love it because it really did show me how bullshit that whole thing is.
Yeah, for me, it was like the dichotomy of being in yoga, which is all about not necessarily renunciation, but like there's so much more to this world than this material world. And then the first time you go in and they measure everything, they measure your
Yeah,
wrists, they measure your arm, they like
yeah.
you're literally, it's just, I was like, what is happening? This is
Yeah. And
crazy.
I didn't know this, but because of, childhood trauma and narcissistic abuse, I was living with an undiagnosed autoimmune disease for 10, 15 years. So I was never, anytime I would have PMS, can we talk about this on your podcast?
Yes, of course. We can talk about
Okay.
anything. And it's mainly women that listen, so.
Okay, perfect. So every month that, I was a swimsuit model, lingerie model, like I did all of that. And then I did all the sports stuff too. So you have to be ripped and fit all the time.
Mhm. Yes.
And so every month that I would PMS, I would gain 5 to 7 pounds. And there was nothing I can do about it because I had a thyroid disease and no one understood. And so I would eat nothing and I would still look like a puffy little, it was so weird. And then like a week or two later, I would look perfect again. And they'd be like, you're so inconsistent. What's wrong with your diet? I'm like, it's my body, it's my hormones. Like
Yeah,
I do
yeah, yeah.
what to do. And 10, 15 years of that was so stressful for me because I was like, God, sometimes I do look perfect, but I can't maintain it because as soon as that PMS starts, I'm another size.
Hmm.
And it was bad. And so when I finally got that diagnosed, I actually retired, which is funny. And I've never looked better and more consistent through that career. To be honest, I
Wow.
think
Yeah.
that career probably also had a lot to do with the high stress levels of creating this autoimmune, just to be honest. Like it was
Yeah.
very stressful for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just interesting the mix between, something that's very much based on our physical appearance versus something that work that is completely based on our inner self and who we really are, right? And like so it's like the yin and the yang of the two
Oh yeah.
developing.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your work now. I mean, you do so many topics, but I think what can be really helpful for people is a lot of the inner child healing work that you do. And so, can you just describe the concept of what inner child healing is? What is your inner child? I know some people say we have like one for every age. Some people say you really just need to focus on the ones that have the trauma. And there's many different opinions on it all. So, you've done this for a long time. So, can you explain to those listening what exactly is inner child healing? How do you get in touch with your inner child? Why would this be necessary for growth?
It is the most necessary thing. It is the last rung on the ladder. People come to me when they're like, I've done everything, but you're talking about something different. I need this. I'm like the last stop because you
Hmm.
can't fully heal at all until you heal your inner child. Nothing will stick and nothing will be somatically shifted until you heal the inner child. In my experience, there's one inner child, but there's many different ages of that inner child that has wounds, that has identities, that has all of this. I see very specific ages in the last 12 years with like everyone I deal with, depending on what they're dealing with. When I did my inner child work, I had been a spiritual seeker since I was, 13. And when I started doing the deep dive inner child work, I was 30. So it took me a while. So people would say, You're so wise, we don't live it. When I did the inner child work, the wisdom dropped way in because now I was walking my talk and it
Hmm.
was integrated. And so when we do the inner child work, it's going to there's many exercises to get there. I never recommend anyone doing it alone because no, you need a guide. You need to do it with someone. And
Hmm.
when you go in, I have this ability. I'm not going to say weird, but some people I'm like, I should tell you it's kind of weird, but I have this ability to tune in and tell you exactly what age this happened.
Hmm.
And I like to bring that to people right away because then they trust me because they're like, fuck, how did she know it was 14 and that did happen? Like
Right.
I had this random new guy in my membership program, and the first day I met him, he had a stutter, and I remember it. I'm like, wait a minute, on the right side behind you, and I was telling him what it was there. I'm like, you have a major mother wound, and he's like, yeah, and I go, and he had handprints on his wallpaper, and I go, it's the age of those handprints, so maybe and I go, oh, you were 4 years old, and your mom abandoned you, and it just came out, and he's like, and he started crying, and he goes, that's the age my stuttering started.
Oh,
And by the end of
yeah.
working together, it was only a few months, no stuttering.
Hmm.
It was like, yes, you had to stutter because I don't want to go into this whole story. There's a
Yeah. Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the inner child told me. And so the way we heal that is to go back at 4 and look at the misinterpretations, because it's always a misinterpretation if we think we're negative in any way. So we looked at the misinterpretations. We looked at what really happened, and we healed back into building self-trust so the inner child can trust that you have a better way than their coping mechanisms of stuttering, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go and upgrade the coping mechanisms. I always say it's like the ego needs, and then when we start to heal, we shift into the divine deeds. It becomes service. So we have to serve our inner child first and really heal her or him. And then what happens is we kind of grow out of the coping mechanism. It starts to feel like prison. And then we need to free ourselves by really lifting up to our higher power and our higher purpose. So the inner child is your gateway to your highest self and your purpose. If you don't do that work, you're not doing the work.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Well, it's funny because like you're like, oh, I have this weird ability. I'm like, that's not weird at all. Like that,
Thank you.
I mean, that's what I do also. But I'm in the Akashic Records when I do it. And it doesn't happen every session, but if it's necessary, when it
Mhm.
does, it'll be the same thing. They'll say a number or they'll show me a scene. I'll see them as a little child. I'll either see it first person as them, what's happening to them, or like I'm watching a movie and I see them and whatever's happening. Some people, it's too traumatic, and they'll even kind of show it to me like in a box, something that they have to process later, but at least they know the age so they can start subconsciously processing it through their dreams.
Mhm.
Or sometimes it is something that we can do together in the session, but
Mhm.
usually not always. And a lot of times when people come to me, it's more for questions. So, like to use all the time, they get this little like here's the seed, like this is the age, this is what's going on, and then it starts to work. So it's not weird at all. I think that's an amazing ability that it can really help people. And yeah, and I found like too, people also will have problems with like recurring dreams and things like that if they don't heal their inner child. They'll have something that keeps happening, and then a lot of the times when people come to me for recurring dreams, it's either past life or inner child. And so then whatever what is the cause, the root cause of that will come up, and then that will start to release it. And then they'll tell me they don't have this problem anymore of like, you know, getting hit by a tidal wave or whatever, and every night or every few nights. So you were saying like building self-trust with our inner child. What
Yeah.
are some ways that you can do that?
Yeah. There's an easy way that we can start today, like if a new client came to me, but the way that if you want to do it like all in and more quickly, I do it with them. I do a thing called the inner. And we go inside together and I take them through an exercise and their inner child will appear. This has happened to me. I can't tell you how many times where I'll say, "Oh, there she is." And she's like, "Yeah, I just saw her." And I go, "Oh, she's wearing red and black with braided pigtails." I remember this one. And she goes, "That is what she's wearing." Like, so it helps them trust their own intuition when I can
Yes,
see,
yes, yes.
which
Yes.
that's why I'm like, I know it's weird. Don't get scared. And they're like, "I love it. I love it." But I always say,
Right.
it might be weird for you that I can fucking see your inner child. Okay. Yeah. She's holding a pink bunny. Like that was the first time it ever happened to me. It was like 12 years ago. One of my first clients. This is when I realized I had this ability. And I was like, "Oh, you're 5." And she's a pink bunny. "What's a pink bunny?" She starts crying. She goes, and she told me the whole story about the pink bunny. She goes, "That's what I was just remembering when my dad gave it to me and her dad just died." So I knew that that was the trauma. And I was like,
Mm,
"Where did I get the pink bunny?" Like it just pops up and talks to me. So that's the deepest way to heal. But if you're doing it on your own, first and foremost, I always say start checking in with your inner child every day. What's that mean?
mhm,
Sitting in a space, bringing forward your inner child. You might not know what it means, what it feels like, nothing. Just saying, "I'd like to know you. I want to hear you." And you check in every single day to continue consistency so they build trust with you. And then I always say, have a guide to go into your inner child first because they won't trust you to take care of them because you didn't.
mm.
So my clients are like,
Okay.
"Why can't I trust myself? She doesn't trust me." I'm like, "Why do you think she would? Of course she doesn't trust you." So
Mhm.
that's when I do the inners with them and I say, "But she trusts me." Because they do. They found me. All the fucking inners. One client came to me who was 38 years old and I go, "Oh, your 13 and 14-year-old are talking to me." She goes, "I came to you because my 13-year-old said I want her." I go, "Yeah, I know. The inner children pick me." And so they trust me. And
Interesting.
once my clients start to kind of listen to the process and do the work, they
Hmm.
build trust with the inner child. So when you can hear the inner child, the next thing you have to do to build trust is do everything it says. If it's 2 p.m. and it says, "I want ice cream," you have to go get the ice cream. You have to start showing it that you're listening. Sounds weird. Now there is a time and place when you need to have the structure and say, like when the emotions start going crazy and they're like, "I want you to listen to me now," like a little kid who doesn't know when they're going to get their next meal. Then you
Right.
have to start saying, "My structure healing approach is 30 minutes a day max," and then you put it on the shelf. You
Mm.
give them rules and
Hmm.
then they start to trust you about that. So it's like raising a kid, but building trust with the kid that you've already abandoned.
Okay.
That's the
So
process.
this is really interesting. Just a few things. First off, like obviously you are tuning into whether it's the Akashic records or just the psychic realm, and I think that's awesome. And the biggest thing that I've learned is like what we get doesn't make sense to us at all. 90% of the
Uh-huh.
time, it makes sense to the people you're working with. But then like for us as readers, it's people that have to just start trusting what we get and not be like, I don't know what the fuck this is. Like, how many times in the beginning you see something and you're like, should I share this? Should I not? And then you're just like, I'm going to share it. And then they're like, oh my God, how'd you know this and that? So I think that's really interesting. And then the other thing that's interesting, and maybe we'll talk about this if you want, but it's almost like I like get the image of like the fairy godmother, or like what, Glinda, right, with the pink dress. It's like this maternal aspect to all these children,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you're kind of in a way, like in an archetypal way, fostering, like in a temporary way until the parent, like which is the person, can really come through. So I don't know. I just think that's really incredible.
Well, I want to say something about that because it's kind of
Yeah, go
funny
ahead.
to mention it. The first thing is like when I get weird signs, I immediately know what it means to them.
Okay.
That's something that people have said is different. And I don't
Okay.
know why. It's almost like minor child is so psychic that she's like, oh, that's what it is. Like it's almost like mine comes out to play. Because I always
Mm.
feel a deep healing when they're getting a deep healing as well. So it's mutually enlightening. So that's one
Mhm.
thing I notice is like I immediately know why. And I try not to tell them because I want them to figure it out and use their own intuition. But I've noticed that when I tell them, it anchors in quicker instead of them having to take time and figure it out. And then their intuition starts to open up a lot more. So there's that could be worked on. That could totally happen for people. But the thing about the fairy godmother, it's funny. Everyone calls me like their soul mother or like the mother. It's kind of funny because I don't have my own kids, but I had this
Mhm.
download. I was in the Caribbean last week and I shared it on a reel. So I don't know if you saw this, but if not, I'm going to
No.
send it. Okay. And I shared on a reel that so I've just been asked to do this really important show about awakening in kids and things like this, the indigo children, right? And I've been like hiding that for years. I wrote a book about it, I didn't publish it. But this year I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I've been asked to do this by the person that created this whole term. And I was like, wow. And I was sitting there with that energy. And what came forward was um, the kids, like it's almost like the indigo children or the inner children are picking me to be their mouthpiece, basically.
Mhm.
Like, you're the one to speak for us. And I thought to myself, I had this weird feeling when I was about to have children years ago that I really can't because I'm here for all the spiritual kids.
Yeah.
Really interesting, right?
I mean, 100%. I feel similar. I don't feel I have a life blueprint plan to have children in my lifetime, nor do I want them. I never
I
actually
love that you
have.
said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. Like it's something that I never had the urge. And
Yeah.
when I was younger,
Yeah.
I used to, yeah, mentor people and they'd be like 23, 24, 25, and they wanted kids so bad. And I'd be like, wow, I really don't. Yeah, I was like, I don't have this. Like, what is going
No,
on? Is there
no.
something wrong with me? And then I remember I would have my astrology chart read, and in like the house with children and stuff, it would be empty. And so, I'm like, what does this mean? And they're like, well, it could mean you're not going to have children, or they're not going to play a huge role in your life, and that you'll be in this kind of maternal healer, whatever role in another
Mm,
area of your life. So, as you say that
totally.
with yourself, I'm like, yeah, I get that. And I just don't
I
think
too.
like, yeah, I don't think it's very accepted with society as women. We have wombs, this and that, the ability to reproduce. We should be having kids, otherwise we're not spiritually fulfilling our purpose on this earth. And I don't agree with that at all. I feel like everybody has their own life blueprint, and we as a soul know what's best for us, even if it goes against what society's saying is traditionally proper or will in certain even religious traditions, what will spiritually elevate you, and you're not doing the good spiritual work if you don't have kids. I don't agree with that at
I
all.
think that sounds insane.
Yeah.
Totally wrong. When you
I
think about society, I don't really give a shit what society says. Society disempowers highly sensitive people left and right.
mhm,
Society tells everyone they're wrong if they're not a certain size or a certain wealth. Like, screw society. It's really about being aligned with your truth because I know women who have kids who fucking hate it. I know
mhm.
women who have kids who freaking live for it. I know
Yes.
women who don't have kids that want them so bad. I know women who don't have kids that are so happy they don't.
Yes.
So when we know what's right for us and we do that, we can be our highest version,
Yeah, I
which is
agree.
also helping society to be a good person.
Well, that's so interesting because I know you were saying like you didn't want them either, but then you did almost have one. So what was like, I know this is not on topic, but what exactly was that
Okay.
process for you?
Yeah, so I was engaged when I was 26 and I remember this weird pressure inside like I don't want to be in a position where I have to have kids right away. And so we broke off the engagement. And then I got married at 34 and he already had four kids. So I was a stepmom.
Oh, okay.
And I loved being the bonus mom. That was really fun. But whenever I came around that age where I'm like, I have to do this, I never felt like, oh, I want that. I was
Mhm.
so obsessed with my work and my studies and my clients that I was so fulfilled. I had dogs. I loved my life. And I remember thinking, well, I have these kids and they'll have kids, even though I got a divorce. So then when
Mm.
I got a divorce, I was 42 and I was like, well, it's probably too late, even though I'm biologically pretty young. It's weird. I mean, I
Mhm.
think a lot of spiritual people are like this. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a weird story, but my boyfriend now was my boyfriend right before I got married.
Okay.
So 15 years earlier. And when we were together 15 years ago, so I was 30, um, we were like, well, if we ever have kids, it's going to be with each other. And I was like, well, we
Wow.
broke up. I got married. Nothing happened. Then we get back together. This is about 4 years ago. And 2 years ago, so I'm 46 now. So at 44, I spontaneously got pregnant. Didn't know it was possible. I'm like,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like ancient,
Hmm.
didn't try, like, no way. We were like, oh, we're on our travel life. Like, this is what we're doing now, right? We're not gonna have kids, we're just gonna have dogs. Got pregnant. Well, yeah. At moment, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. How is this possible? So uh, I think I was only pregnant about 10 weeks, but during that time, I had all these talks with the soul. What are you doing
Hmm.
here? And what was so funny is one of my biggest, not to get super deep here, but why not? One of my biggest wounds in childhood was I'm not capable. There's something wrong with me. There's something different about me, right? We all feel that way because we are different than the societal norm. And so the baby was like my gift to tell me, you're capable. You're 44, dude. You're really capable. And I remember when I was miscarrying, I told my boyfriend on the way, I had a checkup that day. So we're going on the way to the checkup, and I said to him, he's leaving. I knew it was a boy. And he's like, what? I go, he just gave me a highlight reel of my life and told me exactly why he's here and why he needs to go and how perfect this all was for the blessing.
Wow.
And he showed me how amazing my fucking life is without him and how great it would be with him. And it's my choice if I want him to come back. And he's like, whoa, okay. So then we get to the doctor, check everything out, start to do the ultrasound, start miscarrying.
Oh my gosh.
And it was traumatic
What?
as like people don't talk about miscarriages correctly. It is one of the most horrific,
Yeah.
traumatic experiences in the world because people say, oh, you're having a period. It's nothing like that. You're actually giving birth with contractions. So I'm just going to put that there for all the women who need validation of their miscarriages because it is true.
Wow.
And we
Wow.
went through that. And I remember thinking at that age, I was like, I don't think I could ever possibly go through this again. Women who go through multiple miscarriages, you are a fucking goddess.
Wow.
I also was like, I don't really, my heart was not in raising something for 18 years. My heart was in building my work and sharing it in the world. And I told my boyfriend that, and he's like, honestly, me too. Like, we always thought we'd have kids together. And he's like, if we did, that would have been amazing. But that was a lot to handle at any age, let alone I'm that age now. And if I try again, it's probably going to be even harder. I can't do it. I'm not built for it. Like you, others are just the most strongest, amazing humans. I'm like, I'm not built for it. I'm built for spiritual crazy shit. Cool. But I can't do that. And sometimes I never regret that. But I sometimes feel like, oh, it'd be so cute if I had like a little buddy running around. But then I think about the reality of it and I'm like, no, I
Hmm.
I can't do that.
Hmm. Well,
So
yeah, it's just interesting because two of my close friends are 41 and 42 when they got pregnant.
yeah.
Had their baby, no IVF, no nothing.
Yeah.
One's an acupuncturist, one's also a holistic acupuncturist nurse. And I'm like, well, it's like, and it's just interesting too, because I don't know if you had this come up, but when I first turned 35, and like I said, I've never wanted kids, it was like this really weird matrix download that was coming in that was like, you're this is the time. If you want to do it now, now's the time. You
I
have
had
it's
that.
yes. And it was so bizarre. Like it was literally like almost I think on my birthday or the day after my birthday. And it was almost like this program that I think comes in from their medical system or whatever. And but it's very 3D matrix, like not elevated in higher consciousness of like scarcity lack. You have to do it now. If you want to do it, make sure you're with like that whole thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is, and I remember like myself, my soul looking at this program being like, what is it? What is this? Like, this is crazy. Like, I have no, I want
Why? Why
nothing
don't you do that?
exactly. Like, why do I need to be rushed or forced into something that I feel absolutely no desire to do? And I realized like, wow, this is like just this weird programming for women in particular on this planet that comes in at that age. Um, and then also, what were you saying? I wanted to ask you, like, you were saying you got that life review. Like,
Hmm.
I think a lot of people, because it's so stigmatized, and now I think at least on Instagram, a lot of people are just sharing what happens. So like there's a lot more truth, a lot more freedom around women releasing the shame from that experience because like there's like a weird amount of shame which has no place really in that. But
Zero.
maybe you can speak to, from a spiritual perspective, why do you think, maybe from just your personal lens, and then maybe a broader sense of why do you think miscarriages can happen on a spiritual soul to soul connection level? Like what would be, or what was maybe, if you, and if you don't want to go that deep into your personal life, no worries. But what would you say is like the purpose of a soul coming in, but then maybe not being ready or being capable of coming through into the physical form?
I think like my personal one, as I kind of mentioned, mine was to show me I'm capable and give me the option. And
Mm-hmm.
also be like, you can if you want to. But to be quite honest with you, the gift of my, it's going to sound weird, but the gift of my miscarriage was that I have a soul waiting for me on the other side.
Oh.
And I think the problem, we named him, and it's funny, like when we named him, then we like looked at what the name meant. It means divine angel. I didn't know that. So interesting. But I don't see, and I don't think in the spiritual realm, there's a difference between here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some souls that are miscarried are just not dense enough for this reality. They're probably more angelic, in my opinion. And a lot of people are gonna be like, that's weird. But I think people who've experienced will be like, holy shit, that makes sense because it is such an angelic thing. I know when my dog passed away, I had a medium. I went to a pet medium and everything I wrote down about what I saw and why I thought she left, she told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, see, it's like, it's not like a negative death is not a negative thing. And a miscarriage feels like a real disaster, a real negative, horrible thing. And so I'm not going to go tell anyone that just had a miscarriage, oh, it's okay. They just didn't want to come to this world. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's crazy.
Right,
That was
right,
my
right.
experience. But I think there's also, I think there's other factors. I think some of the other factors are um, everything in society that is toxic makes it hard for fertility, makes it hard for women to actually have all the support they need to facilitate a proper pregnancy. I
Mm-hmm.
think some of it's just timing. I think the way we hold these experiences is far, more judgmental than they're probably meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some of my more spiritually based people will say, like, I have a friend who had 5 miscarriages, and she was like, it's insane, but I have 5 angel babies, and like, I'm excited one day. And that's how I felt.
Mm.
Just having, I think for some people, it's really also about why you want them. There's always
Mm-hmm.
intention behind everything.
100%. Yes.
I had a friend who had a miscarriage, and she is very sure that that baby came back through in her new pregnancy. And I believe that too. So, and that's what my baby told me. He's like, if you want me to come back, if not, I'm here in whatever way. And it was almost like, I'm not dying, I'm moving on. This is what someone told me. They told me that oftentimes, like a higher soul will come here to touch down, and that's them getting their wings.
Mm.
Really interesting. It's like they need to touch sort of like the human creation, and then they're sent off to that level, which I was like, wow, someone told me that during my experience, and I was like, I'm gonna take that. That feels good. Um, but I think there's many different reasons, and I don't want to put
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
think on someone else's reality.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting for me is in sessions, what I'll see is when someone asks that question, is I'll usually see it in imagery of like, I'll see a child, either a boy or a girl, or I'll see them flickering. It'll be like the image is coming in and out flickering, and then we'll investigate why, which usually means there's still something and some reason as to why it's not happening. And usually that's in the case of someone, and I don't know this until they tell me, but if they've been trying for like a few months or years and it's not happening. And a lot of times too, like what I found with the cases sometimes of miscarrying, and exactly what you said, that same soul actually that was miscarried will come back down and then be born, was like there were circumstances spiritually within the parents' life that needed to be sorted out so that it's not really about timing, but it's about alignment so that their energies could be the right match and frequency for the child and for what they need and their soul lessons and their soul plans. I mean, and there's so many different factors, but that's what I've seen with my work as well. And I have seen similar to what you've said, where that same soul actually that was miscarried will come down. They just are like, nope, the timing's not right. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the parents. Sometimes it has to do with the collective consciousness and what's happening at the moment. And maybe they just like, they're like, nope, not time yet. Like for their own blueprint, maybe they need to be born as a Libra or whatever, and they need the certain planetary energies to help support them in a certain way, or they need certain things to happen in the world for them to do their purpose in the world. Because it's like so much that goes on with family constellations. It's not just the parents or the child, it's like everybody they're going to meet in their lifetime, this child coming up for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And all of that has to be aligned. So it's like there's so many factors. Um, but it just depends. We see what we can see.
Yeah, I mean, one of the weird things for me is my baby was due on my dad's birthday, and I haven't talked to my dad in 15 years. And I thought, wow, again, it was this sign. It's not really the materialization of it, it's the spiritual reality of it.
Mhm.
And, one thing I'll say about that too is a lot of parents, when we say things like, oh, you weren't aligned yet, or you have things to work out, they take on so much shame. Like, I'm supposed to be perfect. And what we forget is the spiritual world is perfect. They choose
Mhm.
where to go no matter what the fuck you're doing, no matter if you're eating trash out of a garbage can. Like, people have babies who are homeless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of made up pressure about you need to align more. And then people are going and doing all these things. And I'm like, no, you don't. It's a desire, but it's also sometimes people block it by wanting it so much that they
Yes,
create
yes,
resistance,
yes.
right? So I always say everything is perfect. And when I share that perspective with people, they're like relieved because the souls up there know that you can't do any wrong. They choose you.
Hmm.
And it's just,
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I don't mean to put shame on anyone when I say that. It's more
oh
like,
no, I don't mean you. I
yeah,
meant you were doing
yeah,
it.
no, 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 yeah, because I'm just thinking like, because I get what you're saying. Like, if you're in that perspective of the mother, it could be
Yeah.
taken that way. But it's for me, what I've seen, it's more like one example was the two parents really had some things they needed to work out first that were
Yeah.
creating some issues that would have created long-term issues, and it would have created a lot more difficulty maybe for the child, and not every child's like that. That was one particular case that I'm thinking of. But I also love what you said about like basically the seed consciousness, because the intention behind everything is what manifests. Like, you plant a pear seed, you get a pear tree. You plant an apple seed, you get an apple tree. You're not going to get pears when you plant an apple seed, and so it's like we get the fruit of the action of the seed consciousness, the intention behind what we do. So I do think that probably does have a lot to do with this topic, which I know is touchy. So maybe we will
Well,
shift gears.
yeah, I just wanted to say that to your point, though, I think the way that you said that actually makes perfect sense because if you think about the seed consciousness, the baby is basically what we're saying is that couple in particular, the baby is giving them an assignment to make them better. So at the same
Yes,
time, still
yes,
the same thing, just said differently.
yes, totally, totally. And also, what I think is interesting too, it's like babies, animals, all of it. I feel the names we give them are the names that they wanted, that they've been sending to us telepathically. Because I've
Totally.
had the same experience, and then I look up the name and I'm like, what? Like, and you have no idea the meaning. But I
Yeah.
believe it's really when we're in tune, we're getting that from them, and then we just bring it forth into the reality for them.
I have so many friends who've told me that they feel like the name came to them out of nowhere and like she chose it because she's totally that. I
Hmm.
100% agree with that.
Yeah. Um, okay. So let's talk about highly sensitive people, because that's also another big topic. Um, and that's kind of a specialty for you. And I know when I was really waking up, that was a big issue for me because I felt like, oh my gosh, am I just not going to be able to navigate? Because, like, especially in the beginning, when people start waking up and their gifts start opening, it's almost like everything is dialed up 100%. And
Mhm.
it just becomes really challenging, I think, to like live a normal life until you learn how to modulate your gifts and also understand that this is like who you are. So, what is your best advice for those that are listening that are highly sensitive and struggling with their abilities? And also, what do you feel creates highly sensitive people in the first place?
Well, I believe two things. I think there are those of us who are born that way, and there are those of us that are created through hypervigilance.
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's two different ways, and also it could be both, right? Because a lot of highly sensitive people come in with a curriculum of contrast. That was me. I did not have a harmonious childhood. It was very contrast. Like my mom and I were not aligned. We never got along. It was very difficult. And that contrast woke me up to who I am. But I think, and also I think I was definitely, well, I know I was definitely born highly sensitive. So I don't even know what it would be like not to be. So when you say, oh, they wake up and then they come into this, that's a different situation. I can say that when I had my awakening, it was on more on fire. And the more healing you do, absolutely, the more intense your abilities become, as you know.
Mhm.
So I think it's created in two different ways. And I think dealing with it too, one of the biggest things that helps people deal with the fact that they're highly sensitive is inner, outer, and energetic boundaries. I have courses all about this because they don't realize as a sensitive person, you are feeling everybody's feelings.
Mhm.
So if you don't have those inner and energetic boundaries, let alone outer boundaries, which a lot of people don't even know what the hell that is. I kind of made it up, but it makes sense, right? But
Mhm.
you need to have this. If you don't have it, you oftentimes our emotions will be make us almost codependent. Like I need you to feel good so I can feel good because you lack the boundary, right? So the boundaries are super key. And also knowing that there's never anything wrong with you. If you have emotions that feel chaotic, no, it's not you. See, we attach to the emotions and we identify with them. And then we feel like, oh my God, we're not enough. All this stuff, I'm weird. No, it's actually Sarah over there that's feeling that. They just got too close in proximity and took it on. And now you're taking on her stuff. When I first started coaching 12, 13 years ago, oh yeah, that happened. I had no idea to do clearings, grounding. I would have so many clients a day and I would be sick for like 2 days. They'd feel
Mhm.
great. I'd feel whatever they were just going through.
Mhm.
And so as a healer, like coaches, healers, we have to be very specific on clearings and groundings and um also interpreting whose energy is what. And that's why self-awareness is mandatory to do any kind of spiritual work.
Okay, I love this. I feel that's what people struggle with the most. Can you give some examples of inner versus outer boundaries?
Yeah. Inner boundaries are like your inner critic. How are you talking to yourself? Are
Mhm.
you allowing it in? Are
Mhm.
you allowing your own, internalized anger? That's an inner boundary. We have to keep it really pure and clean so that
Mhm.
we are our own support system. If we're not our own support system and our own emotions towards ourselves aren't amazing, that shit out there is going to affect you 10 times worse.
Right.
That's why it's so important to be self-anchored. It's so important to have a secure attachment to self. So important to know what self-love actually is and having an unconditional reality with yourself. Um, did you ask me what an energetic boundary
Just
is?
inner versus outer. Yeah,
Inner
inner.
side. So outer, sorry, I was going to say outer is more like I can't hang out with them because they're always in a bad mood, or I have to say no and not feel guilt about it. And if I do, I have to work that out. An outer boundary is I can't be in big crowds. I know that about myself. An outer boundary is um, I can't be like, this is a big one for us. I have to live in a certain kind of house and I can't live in every state or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
country. Like it's just a thing. When my, I always say my aura was expanding, but when I first started doing this deep work, I was married at the time. Well, it was before I was married, but when we got married, like I kept having to move to like bigger and bigger spaces. And he's like, babe, you can't get a bigger house than this. And I was like, oh, I just couldn't be around too close in proximity from other people for too long. I was
Mm-hmm.
really working it out. I was really mastering my new energy. As you kind of mentioned, like when you first get it, it's expansive because we
Mm-hmm.
haven't mastered our new boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So my energy was expanding so much that like someone across the house, I was like, oh my God, he's depressed. Like that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things. Now it doesn't bother me. Like my
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend and I work from home, just I don't care. But that took a long time to not be affected by everybody's energy. Now I don't feel like I'm really affected by anyone's. I can sense it, but I'm like, oh, you're that, and I'm over here, and there's like a block.
Well, I think like let's talk about that because that was a big thing for me too. It's like I did come from a very traumatic childhood, and you do develop the hypervigilance of making sure you're safe, making sure your siblings safe, listening to everything from a few doors down,
Yeah.
whatever. And so like you develop that hypersensitivity and your survival literally depends on it in certain cases when it's severe, like mine was. And so then when you get older and then your psychic gifts start opening, I remember I had trouble at some point even just like being in public on the subway in the grocery store because I would be like, oh my gosh, like bombardment, right? But then I came
Yeah.
to the realization of like, this is still a coping mechanism of me trying to keep myself safe, where I feel into others' energies in order so I can prepare myself for what's coming, as opposed to just being in my own energy and then just living my life. And it was like that realization, which helped me really shift with, and the way I would see it, especially in the records with clients that have this issue, is almost like tentacles, energetic feelers going out in every direction, almost like, those electric balls from the 90s that like have like little zappers in every direction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally visualize what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like it would look like that. And they would kind of have their little energy feelers into all these different situations and people. And the biggest advice is like pull it back in. And I don't know if you get this as someone that works with people, but like sometimes we get the people and the sessions that are really teaching us something for ourselves, something
Mhm.
that we're going through, or at least that's what I went through a lot when I first started doing sessions.
Mhm.
I would get a lot of like the aha moments through
Mhm.
working with someone with something that maybe I wouldn't be able to get for myself because I had a block there, I couldn't see it or whatever. But so I think what you were saying there with the whole boundaries piece of like, reeling it in and creating the boundaries. I think what can be really hard for people, especially highly sensitive people, empaths, is really that discernment around what is mine versus what is someone else's. So, how, if you are going through this and you realize maybe you had an aha listening to anything we just said,
Mhm.
how can these people start to discern, okay, I am feeling really sad today. Is it is it mine? Is it from something from the past? Is it something from my own actions from the past? Or is it a family member who I'm connected to? Or maybe someone I'm going to see earlier or later today that I'm actually psychically tuning into already because
Mhm.
that's my coping mechanism.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound so unspiritual, but it's very necessary. Who cares?
Mm,
And this is what I mean. We give so much attention to why. What is this? We are literally giving so much power to emotions that just want to move through us.
mm,
Emotions are energy in motion. If we keep attaching to it, we stay in that state of emotion. If we just let it move through us, okay, cool. I'll find out if it's that person later. Or if it's something from my past that's unworked out, I'm sure I know it because it's a pattern, right? But so this is the thing is like, we're always like, what does that mean, right? The wisdom is not in the emotion. The wisdom is in what you do with it,
mhm,
right? The emotion comes up and says, I'm feeling this, right? When I know I'm processing something deep, we know when it's ours because we're like, oh, that was a trigger from abandonment. I feel this. When it's something random like that, where we can't put a name to it, awesome. Hi, how are you? Let it go. That's what I do. But if it's something that I've just gotten severely triggered from this and it's abandonment, then I go into it for the wisdom because it's telling me a story and I need to give it a voice and upgrade it so it can release. So that's why it comes to us because it wants our help when you get really good at understanding how your system works, like I like your example of someone I'm going to see in 20 minutes. That used to happen to me all the time when I'm like, oh, I know, I don't know what this is. And like I will feel into the feeling and I'm like, I know that's not mine.
mhm,
Start to really recognize what is yours by doing all that deep work. And if it's something new that you don't recognize, it's because it's not. That's a really good way to have that outer boundary too of like, oh, that's with Nancy. I'm going to see her today so I can prepare myself
mhm, mhm.
or what that's going to be. And I always put the shield between me and someone else. It's not like I can't be empathic, but I'm not going to take on your stuff and you're not going to get my stuff. And that's kind of the safe zone.
Yeah, one of my very first mentors would always say that you can take out the trash without going through it.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
know, I know. And I was like, "Ugh, but what if you need to know?" And she's like, nope, just take it
No.
out. And like, because I think a lot of people can, instead of feeling the emotions, like one of the best coping mechanisms is intellectualizing them, like
Yes.
labeling them, knowing what it is, but then you're like still not dealing with it. You kind of press it down, stifle it down. But I
Totally.
think like what this is bringing up for me is like, one of my recent mentors who did pass, one of his shielding techniques that he shared with me that he recommended I would do is essentially saying like anything negative, any negative energy sent at me be sent back. Right. And so I think sometimes that can be hard for people to think, to agree with, because sometimes as empaths, you're like, okay, well, this came to me, it's from someone else, and maybe I should just transmute it. But
Yeah.
at what point, like, are you going to keep transmuting everybody's stuff to the point where it can wear you down? Versus if you were at a restaurant, someone sent you the wrong dish, you send it back. If you're allergic, you just can't take the food, right? Like, but where is the differentiation between that?
Yeah. There's a term I call the unhealed empath. And
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
lot of empaths who aren't quite healed in this yet take on other people's stuff because their way of getting validated in the world is helping them. If
Yes.
I can help you, that's why a lot of empaths get stuck with narcissistic people because they're always the one taking it on because they get to feel the validation of you need me, I get to fix you. When we start to heal that, we're like, I don't need to fix, I just need to freaking ignite what's going on for me. And
Hmm.
when we can feel that and you feel that over responsibility of, oh, I could transmute this for this. What I like to remind people of is make your gift your passion that you get paid for. You're not here to be everybody's spiritual teacher all the time. It's draining. No one could do that. It's not like you're
Hmm.
not enough and you're not trained enough. It's like no one could do that. After I have a full week of clients, I've had to like cut down on my clients in the last month because I was burnt out. The first 3 months of the year, I was like, I had way too many. And I realized it's not because I can't do it, it's because I want to enjoy other things in life. And
Hmm.
so I've had to kind of restructure some things and I'm still in the middle of it. But I love it so much more because now I'm just so tapped in, tuned in, turned on to everything that I'm doing because I give myself that space. If I had to see everyone that comes to me, I probably would be sick at some point. It's just not normal, right? So then you
Hmm.
think about like I'm taking off the coaching cap and I'm going out into the restaurant. I can always notice what someone's wounds are. It's kind of fun. I'll be like, oh, that guy had a narcissistic mother. Like I will do that with my boyfriend. He's like, oh my God, that's so accurate. Look who he's married to. Right. And so I know what it is, but I'm not emotionally interested in
Hmm.
getting involved. It's like my
Hmm.
energy is too precious right now to be over there in that corner and then there. So it's picking and choosing. But when you're new at it, it's really fun. So I can see why it would be really exciting and easy to always tap into everyone because it is kind of our schooling. I think I did that for many, many, many years, and I was very exhausted mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally all the time.
It's not good. It's definitely not good to do that. And I think if you're going to do this in the long term, you have to be able to shut it down, like, and
Have-
turn it on when you need to and turn it off when you need to. Otherwise, it's not livable.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, and
Um,
it's true, by the way, like spiritual illness is real. I think,
mhm.
I think a lot of my autoimmune, because I haven't had symptoms in like over 10 years, but when I first got diagnosed, a lot of those symptoms were from the exhaustion, the fatigue of chronically processing everything and everyone.
Yes. So what I wanted to say was we were just talking about this dynamic, and I just feel like narcissism has become this crazy buzzword, and everybody is now narcissist, that's your ex, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
But I really do feel people that are highly sensitive and empaths, it's like a weird pattern in this world that we have where the two link together. And
totally.
what is the purpose of a relationship like that? So for those that are either in it now, unfortunately, or out of one, they can see the true purpose, the higher purpose of it, how to grow from that, why that would happen, and how to prevent something like that from happening again.
Mhm.
Just so they don't think it was a waste of time, but instead they get the spiritual lesson from it all.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question that nobody asks.
Mm.
And the reality is, I've had narcissistic relationships in the past. And what I have ultimately seen is those of us who are more empathic that find ourselves in that dynamic are in denial of self. And those of us who are narcissistic are in denial of the true self. So it's the match of the wound of we're both denying the true self. And what I noticed by being in a narcissistic relationship is I was projecting my power onto him because it wasn't safe to be in my power when I was a child. And when I projected it onto him, I got to be in a relationship with that power and feel more myself, which is the soulmate. You become whole. No, right? And so the other thing with empaths, like I said earlier, is we get a hit from being helpful, right? There's that. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is what I've learned from past narcissists who I'm friends with now, right? Old relationships is that we are the angel, we are the light that they get to project. They get to feed off of that supply. And
Mm-hmm.
but they cannot handle you in your power. So you, as a codependent or an empath, are really excited about giving your power to them so you can feel loved, and they're excited about taking your power so that they can feel powerful. And that's the dynamic. And once you start to realize what the hell is going on and you can't have a self for too long in this relationship, what I think the ultimate healing is always in these relationships is them never being what you think they are and can never be what you need. So you learn to actually become a self, to reclaim the true self, and to anchor in a secure attachment because narcissistic relationships are always insecurely attached.
Hmm.
So if you're in a narcissistic relationship, you do not have a secure attachment to self, and that is the work, which is inner child work.
Yes, I feel like when I was getting out of mine, it was very rock bottom for me where I felt like literally I would always say a shell of myself
Fun.
because I gave so much and I tried to adjust so much until the point where I'm like, this isn't even me anymore. Like there's compromise in a relationship and then there's whatever this is and this is not working anymore. And
Mm.
yeah, and I felt also that a majority of my learning actually came after the relationship ended, not during it. I think they were learning in it. I was learning out of it. And I think the biggest thing that can happen, or at least something for me that was huge, was wow, where was the self-love? If there was self-love, like I would have not tolerated this for what? And also, I think a really big wound for myself, but for also many empaths are it's the wound of wanting to be accepted. Like you just want to be accepted for who you are and you'll mold yourself or whatever to fit to be accepted. And maybe that's just mine. Maybe you find that often. What do you feel are the most common woundings that can occur within empaths, highly sensitive people that can lead to this dynamic?
Yeah, there's three very specific ones. I have this course called I Am Worthy, and it's all in there. And this is how I say it is unworthiness wound, right? So codependency comes from the root cause of insecurity. Insecurity comes from unworthiness. Unworthiness comes from an abandonment. Abandonment comes from self-abandonment. You are self-abandoning by trying to be something for someone.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
only way we can self-abandon is we don't have self-worth. The only reason we don't have self-worth is because we were abandoned. So we do to our inner child what was done to us as a child. Many highly sensitive people were abandoned by a society that doesn't understand us.
Hmm.
So we all have that abandonment wound, which means we all have a worthiness wound, which means we all are slightly codependent or too empathic without boundaries, right? So
Hmm.
that is why we fall into this. Once we do, so I have three courses that I always tell everyone to take in a row. Emotional rehab is getting your identity back from source out of society, which will heal a lot of this. Then we go to shadow work to heal the mother, father, and tribal wounds. And then we go into I am worthy because the worthiness wound that comes from the self-abandonment, when you stop self-abandoning and you truly anchor to the self securely, you won't ever be in one of these relationships again. Sure, you might be attracted to them and they will be attracted to you. And then you have the boundaries and discernment to choose again because you're like, oh, I know what that is. I love myself.
Hmm.
If you are still okay with self-abandoning to get accepted, see, that's an example of the inner child wound is over the divine deed. So the inner child wound of I need to belong, I need to not be left out, I need to be accepted. It's because there's a part of you who is not self-accepted yet until
Hmm.
someone else gives you a permission slip.
It's interesting that you say that because I know out of the 6 year thing and engagement, whatever, I spent 3 years completely isolated, no dates, no nothing. Just I was like healing. I was like, I need to repair, I need to build, I need to process, etc. And quite recently, I feel like I went through an accelerated what happened in 6 years happened in 2.5 to 3 weeks of almost the same thing, but instead of me in any way going through that same process, I saw it. I saw it for what it was. I was like, okay, thank you. No thanks. We're done.
100%.
And it's like, it for me was like, at first I was like, why am I still attracting this? And I was like, no, this is just the universe saying, you've gotten through this. Like, you've mastered it. Otherwise, like what happened in 6 years, you completed in 3 to 4 weeks and you can spot it now. You've taken care of yourself to the way that you know that you're not going to get into that again, which is hopefully, God willing, uh, what's happening. So
That's
I know,
great
yeah.
evidence. Yeah.
So I know you were saying like basically the core of that of healing the unworthiness is connecting with our true self and
Mhm.
connecting with ourself, like our soul. What are
Mhm.
ways to do that for people that maybe they're out of those relationships, they're in the process of healing, and now they're just like, I just want to secure that attachment to myself so I know I can rely on myself moving forward.
So before that, can I just mention something about what you said about I still
Yes.
attracted this? Because I think
Yes.
this is one of the biggest misinterpretations that people never get to fully understand. I think you're going to get this too. And what I'll say about it is we're always going to attract that. We are
Mm.
powerful, beautiful people that they are attracted to. It's not like, and this is the other thing I hate about people shaming themselves because, oh, I must be doing it wrong. I still attracted this. Incorrect. You will always attract it. That has nothing to
Mhm.
do with your level of work. Your level of work is the exact example you just gave of, I figured it out quickly this time and I said no.
Yeah.
After my divorce, I attracted someone that I would say was probably narcissistic, and it was super fucking fun. And I knew exactly what was going on. And then when I was like ready, I said to myself, damn, I really wish this wasn't the case, but this is, and I gotta go. And it was
Hmm.
really hard and I hated it. But I'm not gonna put up with anything. So it's almost like everyone. And so someone said to me, well, how could you still attract a narcissist? I go, because I'm really fun and I'm dynamic and I'm the way they want me to look. And I'm exactly
Hmm.
what a narcissist wants. Of course, I'm going to attract that. And so are you.
Love that.
So
Love that.
we attract them because we're wonderful. There's a whole video I'm releasing on YouTube next week about how narcissists are really attracted to powerful women and vice versa.
Secretly, but then they want to just take
They
and
need to take your power.
yes, yes.
Yes. So, sorry, next thing. So, you asked
Yeah.
me how to securely attach to the self.
Yes, yes.
There are micro things we can do daily. So the first thing is, what are your thoughts about yourself? Do you stop them in the moment or you continue them? What are your habits? Are they making you the best version of yourself or are they a coping mechanism? Who do
Mm.
you talk to? Why do you talk to them? Are you compromising your boundary because they need you, or are you telling them no because you don't compromise boundaries? When we are securely attached to self, it's because we are secure in our unconditional love for self and knowing that I am living in alignment with what is best for me, not what I think should be best, what someone else says I should do, but like what's truly real for me. And how we figure that out is, what do I like to eat? Why do I like to eat that? Oh, because people say, I don't give a shit. What do you like to eat?
Hmm.
All these
Hmm.
people get all this backlash on like if they're a vegan or if they're a carnivore. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Do what works for you. I
Yeah.
don't care if you're vaccinated. Do what works for you. I
Hmm.
hate it when people are like, there's one way and that's it. I'm like, bullshit.
I agree.
Yeah. Finding out what works for us and what we feel and what's best for us. One thing I'll say that trips people up a lot is people are like, well, is this my trauma or my truth when I'm feeling? And I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter. Feel it. That's where you're at right now.
Mm.
Stop bypassing any feeling because you're like, well, that might be my trauma. Well, you're in it right now, so it's your truth.
Hmm.
Well, I wouldn't be if I didn't, but you did. So accepting what is right now is the quickest way to be in alignment and securely attached. And building that over time, like there's no way I can get rocked now because I just know too much, right? So that's the goal is really being in yourself so much that you're not worried about other people's feelings. You don't care what anyone thinks. You don't because you realize it's just an opinion from another person with wounds. Let's be honest.
Mm.
Nobody's opinion is an authority, but we make it that way because there's still work to do. The only reason there's a false idol or somebody else's opinion as a higher authority is because there's something about them you deem more worthy than you.
Ooh, this is good. I think as a last question, this can be really hard for people, which is that aspect of just self-love, like pure self-love, like you were saying, accepting what is. I think that's where it can get tough if
Yeah.
you look in the mirror or you look at your life and it's not the way you want it to be, or like the people in your life, the relationships, your finances, your job, whatever it may be, it's not the way you want it to be. Or maybe you just made some decisions that you know weren't aligned with yourself and you're feeling a lot of guilt around that. Like how can people really tune into and feel true self-love for themselves when if they look in the mirror or they look at their life reflectively or meditate and all they feel are negative emotions around their current life or their choices or anything like that?
This is a fabulous question. It's pretty clear for me. So there's a couple different things I'll say as quick as I can. First thing is how you relate to the issue is the issue. So if you're down on yourself about your finances, that's not going to change anything.
Hmm.
And then looking at why your finances are that way and acknowledging it and owning it and be like, oh, yeah, shit, I can choose again instead of identifying with that as your identity and your worth is based on your finances or based on your relationship status. No, you're seeing it wrong. Everything from the spiritual perspective is everything's working for you. Everything is happening for you, not to you. You're the one that misperceives it as so. And
Mm.
so when we look at people always laugh at me because I'll be like, oh my God, I totally fucked that shit up. Okay, I love myself. They're like, how do you do that? I'm like, why would I hold on to that? Moving back into alignment, I
Mm,
forgive myself as quick as you've ever seen because I know, yeah, I already get the lesson immediately. There's no reason to be mean to myself or like hang on anything. It's just why I'm putting resistance in my path. I love myself too much to make resistance. What is it doing for me to badger myself or to blame myself or to not forgive myself? What is it doing for me? It's kind of like a parent. Oh, they're punishing you, so you stay in line. Yeah, I already got the lesson. We don't need to be punishing people. We need to tell people, do you understand? Okay, I love you anyway. When you can say, fuck, I screwed up and I love myself anyway, guess what happens? Unconditional love. I can make mistakes and that's still safe.
mm,
But we grew up in families that didn't know how to do that and there was no resolve. So we're
mm,
like, I have to be mean to myself. I have to pick myself apart. So I keep being on a diet, whatever the hell it is. The best diets happen when we're like, I love myself even when I'm fat. I love myself even when I'm sick. I love myself. That is actually how it works. People
mhm,
think it's like I have to be hardcore. I have to be mean to myself because I don't like my finances. Well, guess what? You can't allow abundance in when your heart is closed.
mm.
Won't work. You will perpetuate it. Do you want to do that? Or would you like to create what you want?
Well, I think that is a big thing. Like a lot of people have that reward system. Like, well, I will show myself love if I
Yeah.
lose this amount of weight, if I gain this amount of money, if I get married, if I have kids, whatever it may be. How do they get out of that? How do you get out of like the reward system?
Yeah. Well, it didn't work for you. That's how I got out of it. And number two, it's so funny to me because it's like I always say, okay, you didn't do that, and so what? The
Hmm.
conditional love is actually keeping you in a perpetuation of more conditions and being attached to conditions. I always say, oh, I look like shit, love myself anyway, or that's what it is. It is what it is. So you can either love what it is and love yourself through it, or you can be mad at yourself and bash yourself for things until you get somewhere. When you really think about it, oh, I'll love myself when I get there. No, you won't. Because you won't get there until you fully love yourself. And if you do get there without fully loving yourself, now you will only love yourself if you're this.
Hmm.
You're continually identifying with condition, which means you'll never identify with the truth.
That's
True
the
self does not
paradox.
have conditions. Yes.
Exactly. What would you say to someone that's like, or would you say that also this just comes naturally with age? Because like I could say my teens, right? I was like so self-conscious, this and that. Then every decade I think it got a little better.
Totally.
Yeah. So do you think it's something that just naturally comes with age, or do you think it's something that basic, like you're saying, radical self-acceptance, basically,
Yeah.
which I think can be a very foreign concept to
Yeah.
a lot of people, especially even if you were raised in a really religious background where there's guilt, there's shame, there's right, there's wrong, there's ethical rules, even if it's not a organized religion, but let's just say you're following a certain ethical rules and there's sin or whatever. I think
Yeah.
there can be all of that. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, what do you think about that? Just the age, like the just time on earth, or like actually just gaining that radical acceptance, just ways to do that that seem so foreign to people that were maybe raised very rigidly.
Yeah. That's a great question. And there's so many different parts of this. But the first thing I'll say is once you do it, the wisdom drops in.
Hmm.
People have to risk and have the courage to just radically accept because then the wisdom actually drops in because you're in full acceptance of self. But here's the problem. A lot of people do have issues with morals and ethics. And so I think it is good in a way to hold yourself to that. When I'm talking about myself, I've always been like a very moral, ethical person. So like that's just my alignment. But with people that don't, I think it's actually good for them to be a little bit more
Yeah.
not conditional on themselves, but structured or
Yeah.
strict in that way, but love themselves anyway, knowing they're working on it. But yeah, radical self-acceptance is the key to actually living unconditionally, meaning my conditions don't define me because I love myself no matter what. You can't get self-love unconditionally if things are defining you, your weight, your measures, your money, your relationship status, how other people see you. If you have any of that, I won't love myself until this, you will never be unconditional. You will always be tied to conditions, which means controlled, which means not free.
Mm. And are you a believer that we attract partners on the level that we can love ourselves? Like the love that we can receive? Do you believe in that?
Good question. No. I
Mm,
think we attract all types of levels, and what happens during the relationship shows you what you're able to receive.
hmm. Awesome.
I'll give you a quick example because so my boyfriend and I were together 15 years ago. During that time, I remember the reason I left is he was not going to be what I thought I wanted at the time. But the other reason is he loved me more than I love myself. And I
Hmm.
was like, I don't actually want to love someone until I can fully love myself first, more than you love me, because I couldn't accept his love. It was more than I gave
Right.
myself. And so all these years later that we're back together, which is so hilarious, he's like, well, damn, you love yourself a lot. I'm like, yeah, well, now we're a match, right? I couldn't be a match with you then. I attracted you then, but that wasn't going to be a match. Now, and he did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work too, obviously, but now it's
Hmm.
more of a match. But I also see people that aren't a match, but they accept that, right? So it's what we are able to accept and what we can transmute. So I don't think it's so, this is just such a, again, not really a super spiritual streamline, answer, but I don't think it's like, oh, I'm that, so I attract that, or I do think a lot of people attract narcissists and allow it, even though narcissists are totally emotionally unavailable. If you stay, there's a part of your inner child that you're emotionally unavailable to, or it wouldn't be a
Hmm.
mirror. You
Hmm.
can still be very awake and stay with that because you have some other issues.
Hmm.
It's not that clean cut, I think.
Hmm.
But I think a harmonious, I guess, relationship, yes, the level of love would be a match. The level of emotional intelligence and availability would have to be a match. Or at some point, someone's going to have to grow and someone's going to have to hold some space.
Yes. So, is there any final message you want to share with the listeners around everything that we've talked about? Maybe someone's hearing this and they're like, this was so good, but I feel like I have a lot of work to do. I feel like I'm in these relationships now that I'm getting insights into why certain things are happening in my life, but I feel a little overwhelmed. Like, what would you say to a listener like that?
Mhm. It is a lot of information. There are a lot of different dynamics, right? I guess I would simplify it. And if they're in a difficult relationship, I would ask them what is their responsibility in it and what is the other person's responsibility in it. Do you think this is someone that could grow with you and wants to take responsibility for themselves, or are you taking over responsibility? And if so, if that scares you, so you have to stay that way, that's your work. And if you're cool with doing your own thing, regardless of what happens, you're pretty far along. Because what I'm guessing is a lot of people out there that stay with difficult situations is they're afraid to totally own their power because of the fear of disconnect.
Mm,
So I think it would be an empowerment piece as well as a worthiness piece and a codependency piece for most people starting out.
awesome. I would also recommend just watching some of your videos, even your earlier videos, like from years ago. I think they're so helpful. They were very helpful for me in that time. And then also in the transformational time when I was coming out of that relationship, that really big one. I was like, it was just validation and very much helpful because a lot of times when you're in something that's so difficult and the gaslighting's there and your sense of reality is a little bit like that did happen, but there's you know what I mean? So your videos are very anchoring, so I would recommend that. But you also have options and ways to work with you. I know you have your truth room and your courses and your Patreon. So if you want to share how people that are listening can work with you in any capacity and where to find you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So, yeah, my True Hero membership is my monthly membership. There's three different levels. Level two, you can have sessions with me every single week with the group. The Patreon is just a deeper dive into my videos. So, I'll give you assignments and just a deeper explanation. And all my courses are now on demand. There are some that are 6 weeks, 12 weeks. Most of them are 12 weeks. Some of them are just, quick downloads. Those are all available. And also, I am offering one-on-one right now, mainly my all access package, but I have like a couple spots that I am leaving open just in case, because like I told you, I've cut back.
Yeah.
So those are all the ways I think, and also just YouTube and podcasts that I have as well.
Oh, awesome. Yes, and you have your own podcast. That's new, right?
Yeah, that's about 6 months, I think. Yeah, it's pretty new.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I think this was all really helpful. And we went through a bunch of different topics, but hopefully, I think it gave everyone little nuggets to help move them along on their journey to self-love and radical self-acceptance, and also just feeling our emotions, which I think for me was my biggest takeaway. It's like, oh, yeah. instead of intellectualizing, thinking where did it come from, just feel it. As
Good.
someone that is very in my head a lot, I was like, huh, simple advice, but so powerful.
Yeah, and just what is right now is what is, or it would be different. Just that radical acceptance piece. I've really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you. Thank you again. I appreciate it. So, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe to the Soul Awakening podcast. When you subscribe, you'll be notified of our new interviews and episodes that release once a week, every Friday. You can find all the episodes online on catfowler.com/Soul Awakening podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we are also on YouTube now. If you'd like to watch the interviews. So you go to youtube.com/@ and then cat_Fowler. That is in the show notes. You can also find us anywhere else that podcasts are found. And please do not forget to leave a review while you're there. Also, I have a little gift for all of you listening. If you're interested in doing an Akashic Records session, you can get 10% off your very first session with me by using the code SOULPOD, SOULPOD. This is going to be a limited time offer. So if you're hearing this and you're feeling called, then now is the time. And it's off your first reading only. If you love the information that you heard today and it sparks something in you, feel free to share it with your friends and your family as well. Because I think, especially topics like today with the healing and the relationship dynamics, can really help a lot of people. So definitely share with anyone that you feel could benefit. So I'm your host, Kat Fowler. Thanks again for listening. And I'm wishing you lots of peace and lots of grounded energy this week, as this week is a little bit more intense astrologically and collectively, and lots of love for the rest of your day. So I will see you on the next episode.